I wonder if you've ever thought about this or heard someone talk about firing their buyer, right? An agent firing their buyer. And it kind of seems crazy to fire a buyer, turn down a commission, right? I mean, it's kind of like going to the water park. Remember in the summer, actually, it's coming up, going to the water park in the summer as a kid, or even now if you're taking your little ones, you go to the water park, you get a log flume ride. It's the most popular ride. It's full. The line is like 45 minutes long, right? But you're getting there. You're on the line. You want to get on a ride. It's worth the wait, you think. Get to the front of the ride, and you decide, let's just say, that even though you waited all this time to get up to the front to get on the ride, you now decide that you don't want to get your shirt wet, and therefore you're not going to ride the ride. But it's almost like that. Work with the buyer for a while and decide that you're not going to go through with the relationship. Kind of like going to the front of a line after almost an hour waiting on a log flume and deciding, you know what, I'm not going to go on the ride, right? So it seems a little counterintuitive, and sometimes buyers seem the same way, right? So working with the buyer, what if there was a set of non-negotiables where you would know this like wet log flume stuff up front, where if you got to the front of the line, didn't want to ride, you'd know that beforehand and wouldn't wait in the line, right? What if you knew that type of stuff up front? You wouldn't start working with the buyer in the first place. There are some of these non-starters, right, that we can talk about. And the challenge is we don't get paid by the hour, right? We don't get paid to send people down the log flume to do rides. We get paid when they get down the log flume, they love the experience, and they decide to move into the park, right? So when you're working with a buyer, what if there were a set of non-negotiables, right? Like not wanting to get your clothes wet on the log flume, a few non-starters that if you saw them, you could say, well, you know what, this is clarity. I've seen this before. Both the buyer and I understand that it's not going to be worth it to work through this relationship. Sort of like it's not going to be worth it to get on the log flume, get soaked with a couple screaming kids, and not enjoy the ride, right? So the problem is this is the biggest thing they're ever going to buy, right? In terms of buyers, home purchasers. The next biggest thing probably is a car, right? Lease a car or buy a car, and that's a house could be 10 or 15 or 20 times bigger of a purchase than buying or than getting ready to buy or lease a car. So it's a big deal. And certainly a lot bigger than the $75 they pay to get into the water park, right, to ride the ride. I have a client or an agent friend who showed a buyer 8 months worth of weekend showings, including the last weekend, 22 houses, right? And then at the end of that 8 month, 22 house on weekend marathon, the buyers said those 5 devastating words, and you've probably heard them. I think we're just gonna rent, right? Long time to be on a log flume ride and getting soaked for the result of not having an opportunity to earn a commission, earn a living, or have them enjoy the ride. So working with the buyer, they've signed or filled out and signed and agreed upon the dream home checklist, right? They know school district, they know bedrooms and baths, they know first floor master. They've got to have a fenced-in backyard that's runnable for the dog. And they cook a lot, so the kitchen's got to be amazing, even though the basement and garage space is not that important. They only have one car and don't need a bunch of storage space. So they really know what they want in terms of the house, right? So you show them a house that meets all of those criteria, and they say something like, let's keep looking. Right? So you find them what they said was the perfect house. They see it, they experience it, and they say, no, essentially say, let's keep going, right? What's that all about? They're unclear about what they want, even after the checklist, right? And so there's confusion there. There's lack of commitment there. They thought they knew what they wanted. They saw it. They didn't buy it. Here's the thing. When you sense that, and when that actually occurs, where you show them something that they want to buy and they don't buy it, stop. You've got to unpack, go deeper. We'll talk about that in a second. Stop showing them those same types of homes until you establish what's wrong with what you thought they wanted in the first place, right? That's number one. Scenario 2, you've probably had this, right? They don't want to sign the buyer agency agreement, right? And so, before, this is a little more not a problem-y, right? Because a lot of us didn't get buyer agency agreements signed until the very end or kind of whatever. It was kind of an afterthought sometimes. And we just said it wasn't much of a contract and blah, blah. Yet now we actually are required to get these things signed in the beginning of working with a buyer, even if it just says tour, right? I'm just going to show you 5 houses or work for a week or whatever. They've got to sign something. It's now our policy and our law, right? Um, and so even if they won't sign that, and they say stuff like, we don't sign contracts, right? And let's be clear, even if they're renting now, they do sign contracts. There's not much you can do in our society of capitalism without agreeing to do stuff. We usually do that by agreeing to a contract, right? Either way, you've got a lack of trust, right? You've got a lack of trust between what you're helping the buyers do and what they think you're helping them do. And there's a disconnect, right? And so it could be the dad who knows everything. I've had a few of those where everything you say, dad picks the opposite and because he knows better, right? And so whether or not dad's super smart or never bought a house in his life, that's the disconnect you've got to deal with. You've got to address before you continue to show them houses under a relationship that's just not full of trust. Those are the ones that wind up taking very little of your advice, yet a lot of your time. You won't sign the agency agreement. All right, and the last one is they don't want to get pre-approved, right? They want to figure out what kind of house they want to buy, what neighborhood, what they like, that type of thing. They've got school district picked out. They're not sure about the yard size. They may want to do a little bit of work. They could do carpet and paint. They might add an island. They could do some windows, but then again, the wife says she doesn't want a big mess and he wants to move in and get set. So they've got an idea about what they want, not exactly, but they want to get that all figured out, right? Through touring a bunch of homes, before they pre-qualify. And again, this is a trust issue, right? The buyers understand that the lender is going to look at it, look under the hood, check their finances, to some extent, at least in the beginning for a pre-qual, and certainly pull up a credit report, right? And it's a commitment. And it's not that the buyer is totally opposed to that process. It's that when they're saying, I don't want to pre-qualify, they're just saying, that's too much of a commitment at this stage of my commitment into the process. And so they're not all in, right? And let's be clear. Anything less than being all in means you're not all in, right? Anything less than being 100% committed to buying a house is 100% sabotage to buying the house, right? There's nothing we can do in terms of showing them more houses, right? To make the situation better. That's where we get back to the question of, gosh, should I fire this buyer? Again, if they're uncommitted, they could be worried about job security, right? They're not telling you the fact that they got a bad review last week. Maybe the wife doesn't even know that he got a bad review, or the husband doesn't know that she wants to quit, right? So job security issues there. Maybe they're worried that they'll change their mind about the neighborhood, right? That dad's telling them that it's up and coming, and that could mean X in a downturn, and they don't know if they'll love their neighbors, or it could be a neighbor that's super hot and they're going to have a lot of construction because there's going to be a lot of tear downs, people building up and adding value. So maybe they think they're going to change their mind about the neighborhood in a short amount of time. Or if they're a married couple, right, and you're not married, you're not a marriage counselor. That doesn't mean this isn't real, which is, what if they're concerned that the house will be awesome, but the marriage is not so awesome? I had a seller driving to the closing day, or the settlement date, 11 o'clock on a Friday. I remember it vividly. At 10:30, I get a call saying, "Hey, we're not going to come to settlement to get our house sold," which I listed for them and sold very successfully, above ask, great deal. We decided, Mickey, that we're actually going to get divorced. And this happened on the way to settlement, right? To sell the house I sold for. And so lots of this stuff could be going on behind the scenes. And the point is, unless you slow the process down and unpack some of that to discover what it is, that frankly, they might not know exactly what it is or how important it is to them until you both understand that it's important and what's on the table. like I said before, 100% commitment without that is 100% sabotage, right? And so let's break it down, right? So what do you do, right? Do I fire the buyer or do I not? Not sure. How do you find out? I know exactly how you do that, which is sit down and ask them the LP Mama questions, right? These are the six qualifying questions that you should both be on the same page on for them to be in the back of your car and be in an Uber meeting you with the second address to make sure that you guys are working towards the same goals. I've done some LP Mama videos. I'll do more. For now, it's a set of questions that is going to help them unpack what they want to do and by when, and help you unpack what you do next step-wise based upon what they intend to do. And until you're really good at these buyer interviews, the buyer pre-qual, right? The checklist. Until you're great at that buyer consultation, I'll give you one question to ask them that really helps open things up, which is, hey, would you say more about that? Right? Hey, we want to be in a good neighborhood. I got it. Would you say more about that? Well, what I mean by good is it can't be on a busy road, right? Where some buyers are like, listen, we've got a big commute. I don't want to be buried back in this community where it's, 3 miles to get to the main road. I want to be close to everything, right? So you've got to unpack what they really want from the new home and make sure that by helping them unpack it, they learn what they really want because they may not know, right? So listen, let me know what you think about this process. Firing buyers is a big deal, a risky proposition, and we don't ever want to do it lightly or unskillfully, right? So I hope this helped you. Let me know if it did help in the comments, and of course, hit that like button, subscribe, and I appreciate you giving me your time today. Take care.